Welcome back to the Clear Admit MBA Admissions Podcast. I'm your host, Graham Richmond, and today we're going to get back into doing something that I absolutely love doing, and that is Admissions Director Q&As. Our guest on today's episode is Virginie Fougea, and she is the Global Director of Admissions and Financial Aid at INSEAD, an MBA program with campuses in Singapore and Fontainebleau, as well as a new campus in Abu Dhabi. Welcome to the program, Virginie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The pleasure is totally mine, and I know that our listeners are excited to hear all about admissions at INSEAD. Before we kind of dive in, I just wanted to mention for our listeners' benefit that Virginie has been at INSEAD for more than 2 decades now in a range of roles in both admissions and marketing. And I guess you started in this current role in October of 2016, so you've now been really at the helm of all things admissions for INSEAD since then. So that's what I guess we're coming up on 3 years. And I noted that before INSEAD, you'd worked for the French Embassy in Brazil, and you'd actually also did some studies in the U.S. Earlier in your career. So that's kind of Virginie's background. Again, Virginie, it's a pleasure to have you with us. And I wanted to ask you a whole bunch of questions about admissions at INSEAD. But before I do that, how are things going in Fontainebleau, where you're based?
Excellent. Thank you so much. We have a beautiful weather today, so I'm very happy to be with you on this podcast with Clear Admit.
So the first thing, for the benefit of our listeners, I wanted to just ask a little bit about your background and sort of what led you to the role at INSEAD. I know, I mentioned you've been there for quite some time and in this current role for several years now, but how did you end up at INSEAD?
Well, I'm originally from Fontainebleau, believe it or not. I was born in a small village around Fontainebleau, and I lived all my childhood not very far away from the campus, not knowing exactly what INSEAD was. So people were not speaking French, others were. And we kind of knew people were coming from very, very far away to be here, but why? And we also knew they were studying, but they were not really looking like students. So there was like mystery around INSEAD. And as you say, I studied in the US, ended up going there for my studies together with my husband-to-be. And there some people knew about Fontainebleau, the forest, the castle, and also INSEAD. So that was really a strange feeling. And then my husband and I moved to Brazil, and I worked for the French Embassy for the Student Affairs Office. And there again, people vaguely knew about that school outside of Paris. and when we came back from Brazil a few years after, and I was immediately attracted by INSEAD and because of the international aspect, I suppose. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just for those listening, Fontainebleau is about, I would say, 45 minutes south of Paris. You can correct me if that's not exactly right, Virginie, but it's not too far from Paris, but it's far enough that it's sort of this beautiful forest where the school is located. And a lot of people who live in Paris go there at the weekend to mountain climb or just enjoy the forest. So it is this sort of oasis just outside of one of Europe's capital cities. So that's a really interesting story in terms of how you got there. I think you noted in a conversation that we had some time ago that there are literally over 90 different nationalities in any given class at INSEAD. Is that still the case? I'm assuming it is.
Yes, it's still the case. It is still the case in both classes combined. Yes, very true. Wow. And this is true for the student body, but this is also true for the faculty body. This is true for my team, where people are coming from many different countries in the world. So truly international from any point of view. Yes.
Yeah, and I think so that sort of explains why you were hearing people speaking all kinds of languages in English,
Yeah.
I guess, when you were growing up in the area. Tell me, and this might be related, I'm not trying to set you up, but what do you like about your job? Perhaps it's this international aspect, but what is it that you really like about your job?
Well, this is a very good question because, as you said, I have been around for 20 years, and one could think why staying at INSEAD for so many years, and I sincerely ask this question to myself regularly, and I'm 100% sure the answer is about getting to know people. When you work in admissions like this or in recruitment, marketing, you're lucky enough to meet people, new people, to listen to their stories, the story of their life, and what made them the person they are today. And I really, really enjoy meeting people like this and discover new talent.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, I've asked this question of a number of admissions professionals, and invariably that aspect of the job comes to the fore. So on the flip side of that, I always have to ask, is there anything that you don't like about your job?
Well, this one was a tougher question, actually. I think I don't like when it's quiet, the quieter moments like we can have sometimes when it's not recruiting season, or INSEAD is generally a very vibrant environment in Singapore or in Fontainebleau, and we always have new projects, and the deans always have new opportunities, new ideas. But when there are less of these, I fear I could get bored. So I really like to be challenged and have new projects to chew, I suppose.
Got it. Yeah, and I guess one question I have for you based on that is, given that there are, INSEAD has a class that comes in January, but also a class that comes in September, and you have multiple campuses, so notably Fontainebleau and Singapore, but there's also a presence in the Middle East. When is there a period of time when there's sort of no students around, or is it just constant all year round, or is there actually a moment where it's kind of quiet in terms of student presence on the campus?
A little bit between Christmas and New Year.
Oh, right, of course. Yes, that makes sense.
Where we get where there are no students and the INSEAD is actually closed. Singapore remains open for not on Christmas Eve and New Year, but it's actually a quieter period where we have less students. But because I'm also responsible for the admissions teams for EMBA and the new Master in Management, Master in Finance, and so all these the masters at INSEAD, then there is not really any quiet period. So that's good for me, I guess.
I guess so, yeah. So the next question I had for you is, I wanted to give you a chance to debunk a stereotype about INSEAD. So is there something that you kind of hear people say about the school that you think is just not really accurate?
It's more than about the school. It's about a belief they have that they need to have a 700 GMAT to be admitted, and no matter how we say you don't need a 700 GMAT to apply, people feel that they have to have the average at least of 710, but it's forgetting that we also have people who have a 640, 650, 660, and we are happy with those scores, because at the end of the day what matters is really what people bring to the classroom discussions, and what they have to contribute and share on the program, more than just the GMAT. That is not accurate, and that gives too much importance to the GMAT.
That makes sense. Yeah, I feel like given, the Financial Times very consistently over the last several years has had INSEAD in, the kind of top three. And so I think that creates, it's almost like you're sort of the victim of your own success, where everyone knows about the school and is excited to apply, but also feels that, because of its ranking and everything, that that it's hyper competitive where the GMAT is concerned. So I appreciate you kind of mentioning that. I do think that a lot of the very top schools have kind of the luxury of being able to accept a broad range of candidates for precisely the reasons you mentioned, getting that interesting experience into the classroom and so on. So everyone who's listening, please apply to INSEAD. Even if you don't have a 710 on the GMAT, you can still be a contributing member of the class. So the next question I wanted to ask you is, what is something new that's happening or maybe is going to happen, so a forthcoming initiative or something on campus that you wish our listeners knew more about?
Well, we are launching a Master in Management, and this is exciting because for us it's a new experience. Totally new because the students will be pre-experience. It's a pre-experience master. So unlike our MBA, which for whom we require students to have at least some work experience, about 2-3 years of work experience is some sort of minimum, where for the MIM students we don't require any internship or pre-experience. Hence, this is a totally new market and new experience for us. So the first students will start in August 2020, and we are really, really keen on getting to know this new generation better. Yes.
So the MIM will begin, as you said, in the fall of 2020, and so that means you're starting to see applications when, I guess, this fall, really, right, is when you'll start to accept?
Yes,
okay.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, great. So if anyone's listening who is kind of pre-experience, and I assume that, is there flexibility? Like, could someone who maybe has a year of experience apply for the MIM, or is it sort of only no experience?
No, very true, as you say. So some sort of internship or even a year and a half could qualify for the Master in Management, indeed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, good to know. And that's obviously an area of graduate management education that's really been growing. Obviously, the U.S. is sort of getting into that game as well, but Europe has long been, offering those degrees. So it's great to see INSEAD doing that as well. I know that our listeners are always borderline obsessive about the application process. And so I wondered if you could sort of walk us through the life of an application. So, for candidates, they fill everything out and they press submit, and there's always this kind of nervousness about, okay, what's happening at every stage until I hear about a result, like maybe an interview invitation. But so could you just walk us through, like, what does it look like from your end when an application comes in and the process of evaluation begins?
Mm-hmm. So indeed, applicants enter their data online in the application form, and when they hit submit, the data flows directly into our database. And at that moment, they are given a unique link that connects them to the Kira Talent platform, where they will record their answers to the video interviews. Right. So for the video, we encourage people to take their time and practice, because we have made some practice questions available for them to for this purpose to test. And we also recommend just getting used to talking to a screen and giving themselves a little bit of time to prepare. Yeah. And the video component is not tricky otherwise. The questions are pretty straightforward. And then together with the videos, the application is considered as complete. And every applicant is assigned to an admissions officer who will be there to answer questions and facilitate the application process for all applicants. And this is very important. So when people call, they have a real person, a person who knows them well, who know, for example, if they need an early decision because they have a deadline from another school, or if they have a deadline from their company. So this person is really in charge of hopefully facilitating and demystifying the process. And the admissions officer is also in charge of organizing the interviews with the alumni. And then we have also a team of evaluators who have been with us for a number of years, who review entirely all the applications. I mention this because this is a question we sometimes have, people saying, oh, do you actually read everything? We do because we are recruiting from everywhere in the world, and we don't have any standard profile, like if we were recruiting from one single country or from one type of profiles. Because we like this diversity, we actually have to read everything and be very, very careful to give chances to everyone. And then people are selected for interviews or not, and following the interviews we receive interview reports, which are evaluated together with the rest of the application, and we make a final call, and the admissions committee, it goes to an admissions committee which is comprised of faculty and alumni, and we notify applicants either on the phone or email, and so the entire process takes about 9 weeks, and this is the reason why we publicize the deadlines, is to help applicants know when they will hear from us.
Got it. And I think that earlier comment you made is great advice about practicing for the video component. We recorded a podcast some time ago about like how do you deal with Skype or Kira Talent interviews online, and this idea that you have to get comfortable just sort of speaking to the computer when there isn't someone on the other end really listening, and so I think that's great advice. The other thing is that I just wanted to ask, I don't know if you can divulge this, but is there typically a percentage of applicants who receive an interview? Like, are you interviewing half of the folks that apply, or does it just vary, or maybe you don't want to share that information?
It varies depending on the rounds and depending on the intake. Receiving an interview is a good sign. However, there will be people unfortunately denied after the interviews as well. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good to know. If you had to give candidates one tip about the application essays and the short answers that you have, what would it be?
Well, I know the essays are considered sometimes as dreadful exercise. We keep the essays. I know sometimes other schools have decided not to have essays. For us, they remain important because they're part of this self-introspection, and why do I want to do an MBA, and why in this school, and I think as important as preparing for the GMAT, the preparation for the essays. And they are important to us. This is an opportunity to get to know the person behind the application. Again, because we have such a big diversity in terms of profiles where people are coming from, a lot of people will not have English as their native tongue. It's only 20% of the class who has English as their native language. Hence, we see some essays that are slightly clumsy or containing small grammatical mistakes. But that's fine as long as they are authentic and about the person. It's important not to try to fit a perfect template or mold. they don't need to be perfect. They need to speak about you and your life experiences until now. Basically, that's my tip for the essays.
Yeah, and I do. I actually, was looking at the essay questions before we jumped on the podcast, and I think that it's nice to see, that the essays are straightforward. For one, I mean, you're asking about people's goals and why, maybe why they want to come to INSEAD. You ask about an accomplishment and a failure, and you ask about people's extracurricular activities. And I sort of thought in this rush in the current era for schools to kind of reduce essays and sort of almost eliminate that component, I think it's nice to see that, you're getting this holistic view of the candidate. And, the questions didn't strike me as being odd, like, some of the ones we hear about, where it's sort of like you can have dinner with 5 people, dead or alive, who do you pick, So this sort of more basic chance for kind of reflection. So I think it's great. And I feel like for candidates, like we discussed earlier, not everyone has a 710 or whatever it is on the GMAT. And for candidates who don't, this is like a great opportunity to sort of explain your candidacy and explain the point of view that you might bring into the classroom and such. So
yeah, explain your values and what is important to you. Explain a lot of people have their reasons, what they feel is meaningful for them, and that's in an essay that you can share what is important to you as a person. And we are all different, and we all have different value sets, and that's the unique opportunity to mention them.
Yeah, absolutely. So while we're kind of talking about the admissions process, the next thing I wanted to ask about is the interview or interviews. And I think INSEAD is very unique. And I think, candidates often comment on this, that I'm not having 1, but 2 interviews. And they're conducted by alumni across the globe. And I feel like some candidates are nervous about that. I have to have 2 interviews. But how would you kind of want to position this process and explain the rationale for doing it that way?
Yes, very easily. I mean, 2 is because you can have a bad day, or you can have somebody you don't get along with, and that's perfectly acceptable. So we want to give the opportunity to fully explain who you are, and give opportunities to answer questions. The interviews are conducted by INSEAD alumni, and in the country where the applicant is based. People don't need to travel to Fontainebleau or Singapore for the purpose of the interviews. And the way we design them is to be a two-way conversation. They have experienced the program, and applicants may have questions for them about what is the program, what it was like at the time of when they did the program. They can have questions about the network, what the INSEAD network did for them. And in return, interviewers have their own set of questions, and they will see the applicants as if they were in their group, in their class, and how they would contribute towards the discussion in the classroom or outside the classroom, or in sports activities or in the student clubs. We rely very much on the contribution in the professional clubs that we have. So all this is assessed and understood through the interviews with the alumni.
Yeah, and I will say, so I used to work in admissions at Wharton, and I did my MBA there, and we used to use alums for some of the interviews. Not all of them, because some students would conduct interviews for the school on campus, and we had different offerings. But when Wharton moved away from that, there was a lot of outcry in the alumni community saying, wait, we liked being involved. We liked getting to meet, the next generation of candidates. So I think there's a real value in keeping your alums engaged in that way. And I would say it sounds like from the perspective of the applicant, what you're saying is, hey, you get 2 chances. And it feels like also they get 2 chances to meet someone who's done the program, which is really invaluable. As you said, they can ask them questions about like, how did you get the job you've got, and what's the network been like, or, so I think it's great. I do think I understand the anxiety around it, because I think anyone preparing for an interview always gets a bit nervous, and this is 2 interviews, but I think if candidates take the approach that you're suggesting, which is, you get kind of 2 chances and you get to meet two graduates, that's the way to think about it. So it must be challenging for you all to organize that and to get those reports back from the alums. But I guess you guys have that under control.
The alums are very good sending their report. It's all good. Online, together with the rest of the application. So hopefully it eased the process of sending back the feedback. But also this is the beauty of the application process here is that the admissions officer, again, they will not just randomly select an interviewer for the applicant. They will select somebody that is more or less in a similar type of role or in a similar type of industry, and someone who is kind of more distance. And the idea is, again, to be able to, for the applicant to explain what they do to someone who has someone's understanding, and also explain to someone else, have this speech or this speech mode where you have to pitch for somebody who has no idea of what your job is. So both are very interesting, right? And again, prepares applicants and students for their pitch when they have to find their next job and pitch for recruiters, in front of recruiters. So that's, again, putting people in the same type of mode.
Yeah, and when we here at ClearAdmit do kind of admissions strategy podcasts where we talk about the application process, we kind of try to hit people over the head with the idea that you need to be able to explain what you do or what your career goals are to anyone. Obviously, you can assume that your audience is intelligent, but you cannot assume that they know every kind of industry jargon or term that you use around the office. So that, I think that's a great exercise for your candidates. So one other question I had, and then I have some fun questions for you that we always like to ask. But before we get to that, I wanted to know more about the campuses, because I think, to the casual observer, we hear about INSEAD as being, the business school for the world. As we talked about, over 90 nationalities at any given time in the student body. And we know there's a campus in Fontainebleau, France, and also in Singapore. There's presence in the Middle East as well. And so I wondered if you could talk about just the different campuses and how a candidate typically travels through the program, because my understanding is that it's not as though they just sort of arrive in Fontainebleau and stay there for the duration. They have to do time in both, at least 2 campuses, right? So if you could just walk us through that would be really helpful.
Yeah, so it's not exactly that they have to. It's an offer. So it's quite a lot of people who will decide to remain on one campus only and will not take part in the exchange. And it's what we have decided with the Singapore campus and now Abu Dhabi is really to offer the possibility to be in the region, to learn how the business is done in the region, and to broaden the network, your network. So the idea is that if somebody is fully committed to work in Asia after the MBA, then it's recommended to spend the vast majority of the program there, and why not consider starting there and having Singapore as their home campus, right? If Fontainebleau, France is just a cherry on the cake, and if you don't go there for a certain period of time, that's fine to your future career, then again, I encourage people to start and have Singapore as their home campus. So it's really there to facilitate networking, to facilitate the possibility to have an understanding of how business is done in the other continent. But again, a lot of people will decide not to take part in the different exchanges. Abu Dhabi is very interesting because it's a period of time and where the Middle East and Africa regions are growing, are booming, and more of our students consider staying in the region after. So it was very interesting to be able again to network, take part in the different forums that our careers team organize with companies and recruiters in the region, because again there are specificities, there are special recruitment talent and network and reasons and way you convey your ideas are different depending on the region, and the way you present yourself is different if you present yourself to a French company or to a German company or to a company based in Asia. So this is the reason why we wanted to have this offering. Also because, strangely enough, they are based in different continents where, and as you said, you have the forest, it's peaceful, and it's a small city for Fontainebleau, which students can stay together and bond really together, where in Singapore it's different. It's a totally different environment where you can be in Indonesia within 45 minutes, and you can go out and for the weekend. You don't take your car, where here you take your car to go to Burgundy or the south of France. It's a or to a country, to Belgium or Switzerland. So it's a totally different environment, which we wanted to have as an opportunity for our students.
Got it. So yeah, it makes sense. I wanted to ask, is there still, since you were talking about exchanges and the ability to kind of move, is there still a partnership between INSEAD and Wharton that allows people to go to Philadelphia and vice versa? Yes,
very true. Wharton and Kellogg are also a possibility for the same reason, for people who want to broaden their network in the US, knowing that it's important with the US kind of closing their border at the moment, like some other countries. It's very important to have been green card holders before, if people are fully committed to work in Asia after, in the US after, but taking part in the Wharton or Kellogg exchange is very important, yes, for the network.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can still recall meeting some INSEAD students when I was doing my studies at Wharton, and I think they had a great time spending, it was a short period of time. I think it was 6 or 8 weeks or so, and they came and just instantly tap into a whole different network and career services and everything else. So obviously, it sounds like, lots of opportunities for INSEAD students to go kind of anywhere in the world because of the campuses that you have and the exchange agreements. So we've talked kind of about all the serious stuff, but one thing that I wanted to do is have some fun and ask some questions that are, I guess, a bit more personal in nature. But, one of the things that we feel is that candidates to business school, our listeners, are often kind of fearful of the admissions staff. They kind of they think of you all as being, the kind of, you get to decide, their future. And so we try when we have these conversations to also allow our listeners to realize that you guys are human beings with interests and passions, and that you do other things too, as a way to, just let them know that, you don't bite, kind of thing, right? So, so I have a few questions, if you'll indulge me, and we'll just do them in a kind of rapid fire succession. But we'll run through those just to kind of let everyone get to know you a bit better. So sure. The first question I have for you is whether you prefer coffee or tea.
Tea.
Tea, okay. Beach or the mountains?
Mountains. Forest, I should say. Mountains.
Yes, that fits, right. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Oh, can I say none of the two?
Sure. Does that mean that you kind of wake up late and go to bed early?
Kind of, yes.
Yeah, okay. What's a pet peeve of yours? Something that you just don't really like that you...
Rudeness.
Rudeness, okay. So, I guess it's interesting because given your situation where you're seeing people from around the world, there must be, kind of cultural misunderstandings that happen that are really educational moments for people. Because I think I see, in my travels around the world, I see, sometimes like cultural miscommunication that can be interpreted as rudeness. And it always pains me to like see that. Like, I know that, the American being kind of loud in Paris doesn't mean to be rude, but then I can see it from the other side too. So that's always fascinated me. I probably should have been a diplomat or something.
That's very interesting that now you mention that. Well, when I say rudeness, indeed, it's being offended, not challenged. So you can be challenged because indeed you have somebody that you culturally you don't understand what the person is willing. But you're not offended. Do you see what I mean?
Right. Yes,
so
absolutely.
by rudeness, I mean somebody who is driving like a nut, and the person can be French, and or any origin. It's not that. It's just for putting people's life in danger just because the person drives crazy is what I mean by rudeness.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. So tell me about a guilty pleasure that you have.
Being French, having a glass of wine with goat cheese is definitely guilty pleasure.
Okay. That's a good one to have. Your favorite virtue in others?
Honesty.
Honesty. Okay. I thought you might say politeness given the given the other side. Okay. So honesty. Where's your happy place? Where do you like to go that you just feel so comfortable?
Home.
Home. Yeah. Next to the forest.
Yes.
And what's a comfort food aside from maybe a glass of wine and some goat cheese?
Oh, if I can't pick cheese, I will pick chocolate, but that sounds but I really like chocolate. Dark chocolate.
And you live in a great place to have good chocolate and good cheese. What's your go-to cocktail?
Mojito.
Okay. Your proudest moment in your career or otherwise?
The birth of my children.
Got it. Okay. Your biggest regret?
Well, I do have some regrets, obviously, but I try to transform regrets into learnings.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't keep them as regrets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good advice for people writing essays about, failures or, obviously to the extent that you can turn something that didn't go well into a positive or an opportunity to learn. That's a great thing. Is there anything that you would change about how you were raised?
No, I'm very thankful, and I'm very lucky because I can tell my parents, because they're still alive, that they should not change anything. I'm very grateful of the way they raised me. And I think it's part of who I am and why I'm still at INSEAD and working in this environment.
Great.
Nothing.
That's very sweet. I guess I don't know if they speak English, but you have to get them to listen to this, and maybe you can translate it for them so that you can warm their hearts.
They don't speak a word of English, and this is so funny. Indeed, yes. Yeah. I will try to translate that for them.
What's a superpower that you wish you had?
That's something that I have always wished for years. It's to be in two different places at the same time.
Yes, that's I feel like there are many admissions officers who say that because they're always torn and pulled in multiple directions. So that's great. Yeah, and I think given what you said earlier in our discussion about not liking it when the campus is too quiet, I can see that you always want to have something going on, or maybe multiple things going on. So if you were to apply to INSEAD today, what part of the admissions process would you most like to skip if you could skip a part of it?
I'm sorry, but the GMAT, 100% sure. Despite the fact that I tell applicants, don't put too much attention on the GMAT. But I would. I prepared for it a long time ago, together with my husband when he did his MBA. Mm-hmm. And yes, I must admit the GMAT.
I too, having taken the test, it wasn't the best part of the admissions process, but it was kind of something you have to do, and I think I felt good about it afterwards. But it just I agree with you.
And the worst is that I know why we require it, and I think it's still it's a very good preparation for MBA studies or graduate management in general. To be very honest. I believe in this test, but it's still very dreadful. Right. And scary.
Yes. And then the last question I have is more just a really fun question, but what's the best thing that you read or watched or listened to recently? So a book, a movie, a record, whatever you want to share.
Well, I'm watching La Casa de Papel on Netflix. Mm-hmm. This Spanish...
Yes, is that? I think it's called Money Heist. I think in English,
that's
just in case our
true.
listeners are
That's
confused.
very true.
Yep.
And I like it very much because it has some lessons.
Yes.
Behind there is level 1 and level 2 in this movie, and I like when it has different layers and different levels. When watching a movie.
Yes. And for our listeners, I actually recommend the show as well. I've watched it, and it's as you said, it has this kind of, it's a bank robbery, TV series, and it has all the excitement that one would expect, and even lots of twists and turns, but there's also kind of a lot of, as you say, kind of social commentary and other layers to it. So great recommendation. And we are not being compensated by Netflix for talking about this, just in case our listeners are curious.
Very true.
Yes, so Virginie, it was a real pleasure to speak with you, as always. And it's great to have you joining us for the podcast. I know we've done some things on the website before, articles and interviews with you, but it's great to bring your voice to the podcast. And so I really wanted to just thank you for making time, and just really great to catch up.
Thank you so much. That was fun.
So listeners, please continue to rate and review this podcast on iTunes. We love seeing your reviews come across, and I promise I'll read them as they come in future episodes of the podcast. And stay tuned. We have a lot of great episodes coming up, and thanks again. We'll see you soon.